TVC News. First with breaking news.
Thank you for staying with TVC News comprehensive coverage of the 2024 Edo State governorship election. I am Precious Amayo, and I have my colleague with me as well.
Precious Ibrahim Chita. It's good to see you.
Good to see you. I'm sure that people of Edo State are, right now apprehensive and waiting for what's going to be the outcome. But just before we get into all of that, we're a few hours into the keenly contested governorship election with 18 candidates hoping to take the seat of power. Now, more than 2.2 million registered voters picked up their PVCs in the 192 wards spread across 3 senatorial districts and are expected to conclude the voting exercise in about 2 hours, barring any last-minute extension by INEC. Now, so far, the election has been largely peaceful, with voters defying the rain to cast their ballot. Before the commencement of the election, the police arrested 2 persons suspected to be political thugs at Ugbogbo quarters in Igara, Akoko, in Edo State. Now, in a statement by Force PRO ACP Olumuyiwa Dejobi, police operatives recovered 3 cut-to-size locally fabricated pistols and 1 locally made gun. The police emphasized that it is working to ensure safety of voters and a smooth exercise. I will bring you live updates from across Edo State from our correspondents and reporters who are in various local governments to monitor the situation. But we still have with us an analyst and a public affairs analyst, Victor Hyde, to talk more just about the exercise and how things are going in Edo State. When you look at the 2020 and the 2024 election, I know that you have monitored elections in Edo State since 2016, even way beyond that, rather. But when you look at how things, let's even start from 2016, 2020, and now 2024, have you seen similar patterns in terms of, voter turnout, security, and just the general outlook of that election as it is ongoing now?
Okay, so in previous elections, it would usually be a 2-horse race. And so the tensions tended to be more. It would then be like, obviously, 2 major parties, APC and what do you call it now?
We cannot state the names of political parties.
I'm sorry, yeah. Okay, so you would see, you see that, 2 parties are struggling. This time, it's a 3-horse race, and it's too close to call. Even the one you might consider a dark horse might just bring surprises. So all of them, I think the security forces this time have risen up to the occasion by making sure that they do a show of power to dissuade any form of violence and thuggery. And a deft move that they made was disabling the, what do you call it now, the...
State vigilante?
Yes, state vigilantes, yes. So that has helped to a very large extent, because they're in possession of arms, and they are the ones that, usually they're the foot soldiers for this violence. And then when you see, armed gangs against each other, one, it creates voter apathy because people are not sure how it's going to be, so they sit at home. But you can see there's a larger turnout this time. I mean, even if the TV is not showing it, you can see a lot of people are determined to vote in their candidate.
But, and I know Ibrahim wants to come, but when you look at this, it was the same thing in 2020 when, there was this uproar about how the election was going to be, filled with violence and how there was going to be thuggery and all of that. And it didn't turn out, exactly that way. I was saying the same thing, the election is not over. We've not gotten all of the reports yet. But so far, there have been reports, of people who have been arrested, but that's just one case. And so when you look at that, the disparity between the heightened, narrative of violence pre-election, and then when you look at the election, it's less. What do you think, happened in between?
Usually, people heat up the system. That's what you say. Everybody's like, look, you want to intimidate your opponent, and so unfortunately, sometimes it affects voters because when the polity is heated, people don't want to come out. You don't want to be a victim of where 2 elephants fight. You don't want to be the grass in that case. So that happens, and so you find that there is more perceived violence than actual violence. It's not saying there won't be any violence, there might not be any violence, But as I said earlier today, it's too early to say that everything is going to be peaceful. When the results start coming in, then you begin to see the reactions and the color of people, because a lot of people are already heavily invested in this, emotionally, financially, and so many have a lot at stake. And so that's when their true characters will begin to show. But I expect that the security forces will be alive to their duties and make sure that whatever it is curtailed early. But, you know, right now, everywhere it seems quiet because nobody knows which way. It's
going. Talking about security
Just a minute,
right.
Ibrahim. Let's bring in, we have another guest joining us via Zoom. He's the Executive Director, Operation Nigeria, Izinwa Uwangu. Good to have you join us. All right, Ibrahim, go ahead.
Do we have him?
Yes, we do.
Mr. Izinwa, thank you so much for joining us. We just started off about talking about how the pattern of the ADO election in previous elections vis-a-vis the ongoing election. What has been your observation so far?
We'll come back to him. I understand that, you know, connection, he can't hear us also, but go ahead.
Most definitely. So I was going to say, because basically you mentioned the security agencies and the police precisely, but if you look at what has been happening in the heating of the polity, we had, you know, some people who were already planning to foment, you know, violence and all of that. You know, while she was reading the introduction to this, you know, segment, we saw 2 people who were arrested, you know, having ammunitions and all of that. Do you not feel that the police has actually, you know, proven itself to be up to the task?
I mean, they're always up to the task if they want to be and when they want to be. So that's never in doubt, you know. And remember, this is an off-cycle election. So they can afford to bring as many policemen as possible. So to that extent, yes, they have. And it's still a mind game. I was listening to the first PRO. I mean, sorry, not first PRO. Fourth PRO. DIG.
Right.
Frank Uba.
You know, promising fire and brimstone on whoever attempts to. So that is also important, because while the politicians are on the one hand, you know, promising that all hell will be let loose, the police is matching them equally, rhetoric for rhetoric, and telling them, look, if you bring one, we'll give you 1,000. And so everyone should just, if we're to use street language, everyone should maintain. You know, so everyone is chilling.
All right, permit me, so just to put you on hold.
Yeah.
We need to get information from, you know, more updates from Edo State. Our reporter is standing by there, Sarah Yeku, to bring us updates. Sarah, tell us where you are and give us update from there.
So I'm still in Akoko West local government, and this is Ward 11, Unit 005, Zoara West. And we understand that since the commencement of voting, that's at about 8:30, these persons have not been able to vote. So I'm talking about close to 1,000, about 900 voters are registered in this particular unit. And the reason that was given is the fact that the BVAS machine was not working as at the time. So just about 5-7 minutes ago, the BVAS started working. And so before, we didn't see any INEC official at that point. They just came in now, and we understand that accreditation and voting has commenced. And incidentally, this is the polling unit of Mr. Philip Shaibu, and I'm going to bring him on now just so he can give us a sense of what these people that have stayed since morning, since as early as 8 a.m. this morning, they've been here waiting to see when INEC officials will resume and be at the polling units. And so when they got here, then the BVAS started malfunctioning. So I'll bring in Mr. Philip Shaibu just to give us a sense and help us understand what what he also has been going through. He has not voted yet, and this is about 12:38. So, sir, what have you been going through since morning, and what's the situation like?
You know, as somebody that I've gone through torture and intimidation and harassment from a Godwin Obaseki. You should expect...
Sorry, sir, no name calling, no name calling. I just wanted to stick with the issues, and let's just get this across.
somebody that have gone through torture and intimidation and is still standing. You should know that by now I'm so experienced to the extent that no pressure, intimidation, or something close can affect me. Look at, I'm happy that our people are actually aware now. Consciousness is high. Since morning, I think only 2 or 3 persons voted before the beavers developed fault. And they took it, they came back, and they left again. They came back, it was not working, they left. And the people were like, what is happening? I spoke to them, I said, calm down. You know, this technology at times can have issues. And we waited. We waited patiently to the extent that I had to get this canopy and chairs for them to sit and wait. And why I was confident is that all other units, there's no problem. So that means it could be technology error, and which is expected. And they came just now to tell us it's working. And you can see, everybody is still intact. So I'm happy that somehow I was thinking it's sabotage, but with what is happening now, that small thought of sabotage is gone. But we are pleaded with INEC, in line with their rules also, that they should check the time that we are starting, and they should also add that time for us to be able to vote. Because for all of us have to vote. We are here, so we must all vote. And for us to patiently wait shows that we want to actually vote and want to exercise our right to vote.
So you believe this is not a sabotage? Do you still have confidence in the electoral umpire?
Yes, with what has happened now, I don't think the small iota of doubt that I had is erased completely. And I pray that as we start, it does not malfunction again. I pray it doesn't malfunction again. So I'm confident and I'm hopeful that with this consistent technological advancement, we will get there one day to the extent that you don't even need to come to polling unit to vote. You can vote from the comfort of your home, and even diaspora can vote. So technology is one thing I will continue to support and appreciate.
All right, I think my final question for you is, talk to us about what you've heard so far from the other local governments. I know that you have ears on ground to ensure that the election is peaceful, credible, fair for your candidate, even for the opposition also. But talk to us, what have you been hearing? What's your assessment of this election so far?
Yes, one thing I've heard is that it's calm and peaceful. I've heard that. Those small pockets, but not as widespread that we thought would happen because of the kind of news that we've been hearing about violence, burning Nigeria, burning Edo State. And we are thankful that here in Jetu, it's peaceful, it's calm, and even the weather is very, very calm. So maybe the weather also influenced the serenity that we have had here. You can see the people. Look at the crowd waiting till about 12:30 to wait for the beavers, and nobody is going home. It shows the consciousness of our people is now high. And I think it's good for democracy, because democracy is about the people. Democracy is about the people choosing their leaders. And when the leaders do well, they give them any time they want. If they don't do well, they still have the chance to use their voters' card to vote them out. So I am confident that we'll continue to support democracy. And democracy is one government, no matter how, it's still the best form of government. And I can tell you that what I've seen here today, the level of patience that I've seen here today, all of us leaders, we have to sit up because the people are now conscious of their rights.
Thank you so much, sir. Precious, you just heard it. So if you take a look at what he's trying to say about the people that have been here since 8 a.m., ensuring that they cast their ballot and vote for a candidate of their choice, these are the people that have been waiting. If you take a look at the voting point, it's crowded, and just a few people that do not have access to that point yet are seated under this canopy and just waiting to choose their preferred candidate. Precious.
And Sarah, we've heard from the reinstated deputy governor talking about the consciousness of the people. But when you speak to the people, what are they saying and what's their mood?
You know, when we got here initially, they didn't want us to use the cameras because they just didn't want us to peddle fake news, which is one of the things that have characterized this particular election. Fake news just days before election, particularly on the eve of the election. There were a lot of fake news about some candidate pulling out of the race, about some sort of stories, you know. People are peddling stories around. And so when we got here initially, they didn't want us to use our cameras because they were not sure of our intentions. But after they got that confidence, which is why we can use the camera now, they got that confidence, they knew that we were not here to sabotage the process, we were just here to do our jobs as journalists. And that's what you've seen. And you see the people just standing around and just waiting patiently. And most of them, even though they are hungry, because they've been waiting for hours now, even though they are hungry, they're still here. There are people around selling small stuff, a bit of soft drinks that they can have and just chill and wait for this election time. We just hope that INEC would issue a statement on time to extend the time of this election.
And then, based on what the incumbent deputy governor mentioned, saying that the people are actually waiting patiently, have you actually confirmed from them whether truly the reason why they are waiting is because they really want to exercise their franchise, or some of them are just there to, monitor the process of the election?
Apart from the party agents that are around, right, which is just like a fraction, a tiny fraction of the people that you see here, and apart from the party supporters, of course the party supporters are voting, they need to vote for their candidates. So apart from that tiny fraction of party agents or journalists, election observers, we've not really seen a lot around here. It was in the previous polling units that we've seen some election observers, EFCC officials also. The people that you see here are here for the election. You see them taking a seat and sitting and watching, waiting. As you can see the queue, right? Initially, right, we didn't have a lot of people around that voting area. We didn't have a lot of people around the voting area. What we had was just that people were lined up. You had the male on one line, you had the female on the other line. But you see now that the lines have been blurred. The lines are now blurry. People are trying to search for their names, and then vote for the candidates of their choice. So, you know, accreditation and voting is ongoing at the same time. So people that are here to vote. They are not observers. They're not election observers. If they're election observers, they will have the tag of an election observer. They are here to vote for the candidates of their choice. And so the number that you see is expected because just in this polling unit alone, I think about 900 registered voters are at this polling unit. While the number of PVCs collected, we do not know yet because it's not stated on the list that we have there. But on that list, what we have is registered voters, about 900 of them are on that list. And that's why you see this number of people just in this polling unit. If you go to another polling unit where voting, we do not have a lot of voters there, that's the case of the other. But this particular polling unit, which is 005, that's where you have this number of registered voters there.
All right, Sarah, thank you for that update. I'm sure we'll get back to you to get more updates on the situation there. Our reporter live for us in Akoko West local government area in Edo State. She's been talking about the situation there. That's Ward Unit 005, Ward 11 in Akoko West local government area. She said from the report we're getting, the BVOS machine has had to be replaced twice because they were not working. Voting started 20 minutes ago now, because she said 5 minutes ago when we started speaking with her, so about 20 minutes ago now. Coincidentally, that's also the polling unit of the reinstated Deputy Governor of Edo State, Philip Shaibu, who also spoke about the process and how conscious the people are and ready to vote. All right, let's bring in our guest on Zoom, Gabriel Wambo, who, you know, he's also an election observer. He's observed a lot of elections in Nigeria. Will also be telling us, you know, his thoughts on this process. Good to have you join us.
Good to have you too. Thank you so much, and good day.
So let me start with, we'll come back to the conversation Ibrahim was having with you, Mr. Victor Ohai, but talk to us about your observation with this election and some of the things that have just been noted. Unit 005, Ward 11 in Edo State, where, and that's Akoko West Local Government, where the beavers machine has had to be replaced twice. Tie all of this into the preparedness of INEC for this election.
Thank you so much. You see, the Independent National Electoral Commission has made a lot of arrangements. And part of the arrangement is a contingency plan, to ensure that there is enough backup of PVCs, for every ward. And there are technicians, there are engineers on ground, to replace them within the shortest possible time. So these contingencies have been made, and I believe that with enough manpower that is also available, we do not expect to see much malfunctions of the beavers. So far, over 90% of the areas that are supposed to, elections are supposed to be holding is ongoing right now. So I think it's a very good development. The INEC is prepared, and the INEC has demonstrated being responsive and responsible to the yearnings and aspirations of Nigerian citizens so far.
But if you look at, Mr. Wambo, if you look at what you said, look at it from 8 a.m. to up until now, that's more than 4 hours ago. And then you're talking about INEC's preparedness vis-a-vis the technicians that are there to ensure that the beavers functions very well. This beavers is definitely going to be used, is being used for accreditation and then transmitting results. At the end of the day, how do you think this might impact the outcome of the elections in the case where they are not able to transmit, especially from the rural areas in Edo State?
No, nobody said they are not able to be transmitted or results will not be transmitted. If what is happening is just in Isako, a fraction in Jatu, just a fraction of, just less than a fraction of the entire percentage of elections being conducted in the 18 local government areas of Edo State. That is not enough to say that elections are not moving smoothly. It's just a tiny part of the election processes, the election venue that is not being working as expected. However, we believe that everything is all right now, and there is enough manpower. And so far, INEC has not proved not to be responsive. INEC has immediately gone back and returned with new beavers machines, and the elections are on. So far, everything is stable now.
Mr. Wambu, if I may come in here, because you used the word immediately, I'm staying on the point that Ibrahim raised, which you also said that INEC has immediately, because it's not immediately, it's been since 8 a.m., they've had to do that twice. If it was just once, one would say, okay, maybe, it was an error. But this is twice now that the beavers has had to be changed. And it's been since 8 a.m. And if you do that calculation, it means that it took INEC about 4 hours or more to replace, or 2 hours or more to replace one beavers. And then another 2 hours or more to replace another beavers. How tight will you then say that contingency plan is that INEC made?
Well, you just heard this in Jatu area of Edo State, and it is not synonymous everywhere. My take on it is that although it is a technology, technologies might not be 100%, effective, but so far it is not so bad. We do not want to hit up unnecessary situations that.
All right, looks like connection there with the Wambu is we've lost that connection. But let's bring the conversation to you to react to what is going on in Unit 005, Ward 11, where Philip Shaibu is also voting. Twice the beavers has had to be replaced. This is the third time. Hopefully people can vote now. But how do you read that situation?
Well, it can create a bit of tension as the newly reinstated Deputy Governor stated himself that he thought there was foul play, but his confidence has been restored. Now, I expect INEC to be responsive, and that's what gives confidence to the process. So it failed once, it failed the second time, but this time around they got it. So I think, because that's the hope of everyone right now, that the beavers would be able to give a fair representation of what has happened, and it will enable us know who and who were there, who and who voted. So a case of voting or ballot snatching, would not come up. So I expect them to be as responsive as that. And I remember in an earlier broadcast, someone talked about INEC technicians being around, so which means that they have people who are on the standby ready to make repairs or fix things. So to that extent, I think it's a good one. I didn't expect it to be 100%. In fact, I'm surprised that this is the only one. But again, we're talking to a high-profile person, so we know because there are cameras there. There may be so many others that we don't know about, but we'll have to wait and see, if that's what's happening. But the fact that they can be responsive and they will deal with the issue is very positive.
There is one thing for the machines to be, to malfunction. It's another thing for the people who are handling these machines to be able to utilize them very well. How do you think the Independent National Electoral Commission has tried to, train, especially the ad hoc, staff members that are co-opted into this election?
I think they have adequate training. I don't think anybody has ever accused any of their staff of not knowing what to do. Certainly not with the beavers or the processes. So they do adequate training. So what is usually lacking sometimes is public awareness. Sensitizing the public about the due processes and what they must do, what they should do after voting. They try. Some NGOs also help and support in that area. So, but once you know what your civic responsibilities are, and INEC does what it has to do, I think we're home and dry. So I'm pleased that so far there's been okay. Because if you begin to see malfunctioning beavers along the line, that already puts a question of credibility or integrity in the process. People will begin to insinuate all sorts of things. So INEC's quick response in this case has been positive, and I hope it's the same across borders. So
there's an improvement in that regard. But let's I understand that we have Mr. Wamu back in the conversation. I want us to touch on some of the things that, I don't know if you were listening to Philip Shaibu when he was speaking with our correspondent in Edo State. He said some things. In fact, she had to caution him while he was speaking. And we've also heard some of the candidates and key figures in this election speak. What do you make of the rhetoric so far and the impact it could have on the process?
What rhetorics are you talking about, please?
We've had some of the key figures speaking. Some have complained about what's going on in their ward. Some have said, or in the polling unit, some have given some level of credit to INEC and security agencies. When Philip Shaibu started talking, our correspondent had to also caution, some of what he was going to say, and said he cannot say that, focus on the issues. And I wanted to, tie all of this together and the impact it could have on the process when politicians or key figures in this election make statements like that.
Yeah, honestly, it is unfortunate that we still have very key figures in our polity, in our political space, making utterances that is unbecoming of public office holders. We have, before the election, part of our constituency is actually to observe the pre-election, election, and post-election processes. The pre-election, we saw, persons that are holding high public office holders talking about burning down the country, burning down the state, that it's a do-or-die affair, elections, and all that. It's across board. These are persons that could be classified. They are trying to, aid or make statements that could lead to breakdown of law and order. And for us in the civil society, we also classify such persons as enemies of democracy, as it were. So we expect them to mind their diction, their choice of words, because they could either decide to cause breakdown of law and order, or they can also decide to ensure that they abide with the extant laws and provision of the Electoral Act, as it were. So by this medium, I want to also caution high-profile persons that are involved in this election to be mindful of their words, mindful of the choice of words they make, because this could affect, impair, or on this electoral process.
Would have even said a die is cast already, because people are out there, ensuring that they register their whatever it is that they have at the back of their minds. But do you think, if you want to compare, or if you want to link the rhetorics before today together with what is going on, what you've seen on the ground, because you are there on the ground observing things, do you feel that the voters are actually acting based on what they heard, especially from the politicians, or they are acting based on the fact that they are also well-informed voters?
Mr. Wambo, the question was for you.
Mr. Wambo, did you get a question?
Please come again. Your voice is so faint now.
Okay, so let me confirm if you can hear me now. Mr. Wambo, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, fantastic. So I was asking you, to compare or to see or to assess how the rhetorics of the politicians pre-elections, because the die is cast already, people are out there exercising their franchise. Do you feel that what they had said, especially with the utterance of the like of if they do, then people will die, so to speak? Do you feel that people are actually voting, or they're exercising their franchise based on what the rhetorics of the politicians? All they are doing, they're exercising their franchise based on the fact that they are educated voters. They know better.
Yeah, thank you so much. You see, what is actually happening in Edo State is that in spite of the hype, there has been a very serious hype of that the election, many people are going to, might not come out of it. Very negative statements. Persons, a lot of people have actually made projections based on the utterances of very key politicians, that the elections is going to be a hot one. But in spite of these utterances, in spite of the heavy downpour in most places in Edo State, the turnout of voters is very, very encouraging and very huge. We believe that the increase in terms of new registrants and the collection of PVCs that have run up to over 85% of collection of PVCs. And this is the highest number of collection of PVCs we've seen in the recent time across the country. And this demonstrates that there is a zeal by the electorate to ensure that they vote for a credible candidate in Edo State. So the fact that some key politicians have made utterances that are unbecoming has not deterred the electorate. There is a determination. The Nigerian spirit in them has been resonated. Nigerians want to ensure that things are done right. Things are done the way it ought to be. And that is what has actually propelled the massive turnout of electorates in today's election. So it's not yet Uhuru. We are still monitoring events as our observers sent across the 192 wards of Edo State, bring in reports.
Conversation in just a moment, but let's bring you more updates from our coverage of the Edo election. About 200 police officers have been detailed as part of a rapid response and are already available to be deployed to wherever their attention is needed. The Deputy Inspector General of Police, Frank Umba, reassured that the logistics and welfare of the officers in the rapid response deployment has been taken care of.
So far, so good. We've seen a large turnout in a lot of the places we've gone to. We've seen very large turnouts in others, and there have been some places where the turnouts were quite low. But for us, our major concern is around the security of the elections. And I am so far encouraged and impressed by the turnout. Areas where we've received minor complaints, we've risen up to the challenge, and we've been able to fix those ones. We're still out continuing on our monitoring. We are cautiously optimistic that all will end well, that have begun well.
All right, the IG Frank Oba speaking there in Edo State about security arrangement. I want to get to security arrangement in just a moment because that's very important. Extra 200 police officers being deployed. But I wanted to quickly ask you about that because Mr. Wambu mentioned issues around determination.
200?
Extra 200 waiting to be deployed,
okay.
You know, not the previous deployment. Now, let's talk about the consciousness and the determination that has now been mentioned. Philip Shaibu used the word consciousness. Gabriel Wambu used the word determination of voters. Is that what you also perceive is going on now, you know, in Edo State? And where is that coming from?
Well, I think that we have three major groups, you know, right now, like I say, equally matched. There are those who want to maintain the status quo by all means necessary, and there are those who desire a change by every means necessary, and then others who want to just, you know, change what is on ground. Now, it doesn't matter, and every one of them is fully persuaded in his own mind, in their mind, you know. So that's why you find full turnout. It doesn't matter what the situation is. People are determined. The level of campaign, you know, the awareness that has been created has been very, very strong because, like I said, you have three very strong candidates. None of them is planning to lose at all. They have gone to the hinterlands. They have traversed the whole of Edo State, done campaigns, done door-to-door and all that. And the people on ground are also determined to make sure that their principals win. That's the level of heightened voter awareness that has come upon Edo State. And that's why you see what you see. People are determined and they really, really, really want to put their candidates, let me put it that way, you know, in there. A lot of, you know, one would say in previous elections, not just this, but across, that, oh, they have already determined who the winners are. They will put who they want to put there. But this time around, it's not the case. People want to go there and actually make sure.
Is that consciousness just about Edo State, or is that something that has been beaten up over time?
The idea of saying they have already...
No, this consciousness and determination we're talking about now, is it just about this state, or it's been beaten over time?
Well, this particular state this one is very, very important because of, I don't want to use a militant word like combatant, but the parties concerned, you know, they're all determined and they've done very well in their campaigns. You know, there are various issues at stake for everyone. You know, there are those who want what is going on to continue. There are those who are saying, no, never, it should not. And then some who just say, look, away with you too, we want something different, a breath of fresh air. So and each group is determined. So Edo is peculiar. I hope the same thing happens across the country. You know, we have other elections coming up. Ondo is close by. So when that time comes, we'll have to see whether the pattern is the same. I don't know if there's that heightened awareness as well. The build-up to Edo has been something else, as you will agree. Yes. Everybody in Nigeria is aware about the candidates. Whether you're from the state or not, you have your preferred candidate, you know, because they have been everywhere. They're in your face.
Yes, you know? And you find people, you're right, you find people also picking sides, even though they cannot vote in this.
Exactly.
Absolutely. But then if you look at, you know, days before the election, the months, several months before the election, we have these politicians who have been, you know, threatening fire and brimstone, even the incumbent governor making some utterances where it was criticized and all of that. But it appeared to be a battle of, you know, people are not actually bringing, debates to the table, a battle of issues. This is what I'm going to do as a candidate and all of that. Rather, it has always been a battle of not wits, but battle of fists.
Personality.
And personality. Do you feel that, with this, the outcome of this election might be influenced by some of those, rhetorics at the end of the day?
No, at the end of the day, people are picking sides for different reasons. Please forgive me for using this term here. Miloko was made popular. The Ishan say it's their turn, for instance. Actually, and they have two candidates.
Everyone says it's their turn in different languages.
So there are those who will vote for that, but they have two candidates. You understand what I'm saying? So, and you also have people who want that continuity, and so they will be going towards one candidate, and then those who want change. There are people who are coming there. I mean, you find people from one party voting for another party. Why? Because they have an axe to grind. It's very peculiar. This is a very peculiar election. There has been no election quite like this before, and even at the federal level, it's not quite like that. You find people who are from within a party ganging up to vote against their party. So it's not about ideology in that case. It's more like, and I repeat it, what will determine this election is the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and the friend of my enemy is my enemy. To a very large extent, it will determine the output of this. So it's not so much about, what you call it now, ideology. Issues. It's not so much about the issues. It's about where do you stand, on this. And, okay, so I don't like your face. It doesn't matter if you're the best person. It doesn't matter if we're in the same party. I have an axe to grind with you. There's that, and
it's like a vendetta.
Yeah, something like that. So at the end of the day, I don't know if Edo people will get what is best for them or what, so it depends on who has a greater crowd. So these are some of the factors that will come to play. And so at the end of the day, what you might just find is a situation where whoever has the greatest influencers on their side, if you have people who can influence numbers, then that's where it's going to swing, because they already have supporters, and they will say to them, this is where we should go, and they will lead them. And those are not necessarily like that, but